I'm going to probably kiss myself watching this Ben Shapiro video as he tries to spin this shit around.
Over the weekend, as a gunman killed 5 people and injured 25 at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado. According to the Washington Post, at least 5 people were killed, 25 were injured after a man with a rifle walked into an LGBTQ nightclub here and opened fire, according to law enforcement officials who credited 1 or more clubgoers with subduing the shooter before more people were hurt. So obviously, heroic action by somebody who is there to prevent more murder. Apparently, the shooter is a 22-year-old with a, as you would guess, serious history of violent imprecations.
Here's the thing, like, if there's a lot of these like violent, mentally ill people running around, don't you think it's better off to like make sure that they don't get guns? Ben and every Republican loves to turn this around and make it seem like this is just like mental illness, okay? Like this is just totally like a unique instance, right? But like the violence is directional. So don't you feel like even a little bit fucking guilty that you're like directing the most psychotic people towards gay people in this way? Ben is not going to openly state that in the same way that Matt Walsh will, obviously, but Ben hires Matt Walsh. Ben likes Matt Walsh.
So once again, we have the specter of probably insane person committing a mass murder. The question is how this person got his hands on weaponry.
It's like, bro, everyone is fucking insane, dog. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, bro. By the very definition, like, yeah, if you're doing a mass shooting, like, you're an insane person. You're not normal. You're doing something that is abnormal. Like, it's not an argument. Like, I hate when people say that. Like, it's literally an insane thing to do, okay? And if you recognize that, if you understand that, which we all do, then maybe, you know, there are things that we should be pushing for that make it so that when someone fucking snaps, okay, they are not directed towards a marginalized community like a fucking gay bar, or when they fucking snap, they do not have an AR-15 and a fucking pistol that they can easily access after they have been arrested for kidnapping charges a year prior. America is such a fucked nation that when I say something that is so obvious that like 99.999% of the planet would be like, what? The cops arrested him last year for kidnapping charges, and those charges were then hidden, and that he was able to have a gun. What is going on here? That's crazy. Because it is crazy. It's crazy. And all these fucking dickheads, all that they do on the right, okay, all they do is try to like stop you from thinking about how insane that is.
Why this person wasn't under psychiatric evaluation. This person was known to law enforcement, is what we are learning. This person had threatened his own family. Again, this is a common thread among mass shooters, is that they threaten members of their own family. This happened obviously at Sandy Hook. This happened also in Parkland.
Common thread. Ben Shapiro saying this is literally like the same energy as like a common thread among mass shooters is that they have guns and they use them. And they're unafraid to use said guns in a violent way. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we should do something about it.
The pattern here, obviously, is person with significant violent tendencies known to law enforcement who has threatened members of his own family. Now, this has not prevented the entire political and media left from immediately determining that what this was, probably a conservative Christian who just randomly decided to get up from a church and go murder a bunch of gay people at a gay club. This is the line that is being taken by every member of the left, which is, if you oppose same-sex marriage, or if you don't like Drag Queen Story Hour, or if you think that children should not be indoctrinated into radical gender ideology or into the alternative.
He's like, no, you don't understand. Like you should still let me say these things. Ben is a pussy, okay? So, of course, the only kind of violence that he advocates for is institutionalized violence that is already seen as the norm. He would be perfectly willing and able to advocate for like any sort of laws that would lock up gay people. If you think that like this motherfucker wouldn't be on board with that, I don't know what to tell you, because he already does that. Black people and black existence is criminalized in this country. Poverty is criminalized in this country. Ben Shapiro absolutely is in favor of that kind of institutional violence, because that is not seen as violence at all. That's actually seen as just the normal way of business, because the state has a monopoly on violence. So, but as long as the state's doing it, then he's going to be like, yeah, there's no problem with that. Actually, the state should do more of that. That's how he does it. That's how he justifies police brutality. That's how he justifies American imperialism. It's state violence, institutional violence that he is on board with and demands more of from the state government.
Style ideology that suggests that all forms of sexual activity are equally meritorious. That if you're a person who believes, in other words, in traditional social values, this means that you bear responsibility for a whack job murdering gay people at a nightclub. This is the going line today. President Biden said in a statement Sunday, although the motive is not yet clear, we know gun violence has a particular impact on LGBTQI plus communities across our nation, which is a weird statement because the truth is that LGBTQI plus people are traditionally not as gun owning as, for example, more.
Dude. He's literally basically like, here's the thing. I want to ask Ben Shapiro, like, I want to ask him, like, so what do you want to do with gay people? You don't want them to adopt children because you lie and say they're worse parents than, like, a man and a woman, which is false. There's empirical evidence to show you're completely wrong on that because your feelings on the matter are the reason why you say that. You don't want them attending like sporting events and shit. You know, if they're trans, like they can't fucking play soccer or attend swim meets and shit like that, even though they are a fraction, just like minuscule percentage of the population. Okay. You don't want them using like bathrooms and shit. You know, you freak out about that. You talk about that. You are also on board with, the drag queen laws or whatever that fucking Texas is trying to put together, which would actively make it so that, being trans in public is criminalized because of the way that people understand it. And you could definitely expand on that and say being queer in public is criminalized. This will also, of course, impact cis men and women as well, who, much like Ben Shapiro, do not fall in the gender norms, right? He is on board with criminalizing the existence of queer and queer-presenting people in public, around children. He is totally on board with stopping them from being fucking teachers and shit. He doesn't want there to be any mention of queerness or gay people in shows, television shows that, children watch, shows that adults watch. He doesn't want gender affirming surgery. So, like, what do you want?
Or traditionally minded Americans. Okay, says we must address this public health epidemic of gun violence in all forms. We must drive out the inequities that contribute to violence against LGBTQI plus people. I don't even know what that means. The inequities that contribute to violence against like what? We're gonna give tax rebates to people, and this is somehow going to prevent insane mass shooters from murdering.
What? No, you fucking idiot. Inequities like not allowing them to. You have advocated for businesses to literally stop serving gay and trans people if they choose to wish to not serve them. Okay? Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? That is systemic inequality that you want because you're too big of a pussy to just like outright say it. Like, I don't think any business should serve gay and trans people. You're not saying that. So instead, you're saying like the government should make it so that people that don't want to fucking serve gay and trans people can discriminate against them. You say it all the time, Ben. That's a thing that you believe, okay? So basically, it's just about what he wants. He just wants businesses to represent his values and nothing else.
For trying to screen out possible shooters. Now, this has not prevented the entire political and media left from immediately line today.
We talked about all this. Sorry,
I was against LG. Like what? We're gonna give gay and lesbian people at a nightclub. But this is the line. The line that is going here is that if you really wish to prevent violence against gay clubs, this means you have to support every element of the progressive agenda, or you are complicit. And this is a game that only gets played by one side of the political aisle. Again and again and again, we see in public life, when there is a threat against a person of the right, when there is an attack by a member of a left-wing organization or an intersectional identity associated with the left against someone else, that we don't tie that to a broader ideology. We don't attempt to suggest that it's the fault of everyone.
One, because the amount of like left-wing terror is marginal and ultimately insignificant, okay? It's nothing. It's like someone being sneezed on in comparison to fucking the overwhelming sea of right-wing, anti-government, white supremacist domestic terror, which is the overwhelming amount of domestic terror and terror in general that happens in the United States of America. Okay? That's it. That's the problem. That's the issue. Broader left-wing ideology, literally Medicare for all, okay? Expanding benefits and entitlements. Like, that's it.
Who has general beliefs in a broader social system. Instead, we say, well, that's an individual and he believes an extreme thing, and that person ought to be ostracized.
Right-wing police forces can fucking unleash tear gas on a crowd of protesters, but it's considered violent when the left-wing protesters kick the tear gas back. That's when violence breaks out. That's the dichotomy. That is how violence works. It's about how you perceive it, what is appropriate. Because ultimately, politics is about violence. Who gets to do it? Politics is about the distribution of resources, power, and violence. Who gets to distribute the violence? Who gets to dole out the violence? Who is on the receiving end of violence? and how we all perceive it to be just and justifiable. That's what politics is. And the thing is, like, these guys are advocating for fucking more violence from the state all the goddamn time. They complain and cry when the state is not enacting more structural forms of violence towards marginalized groups that they've declared their enemies. But ultimately, they're so successful across the board. They're so fucking successful across the board with that kind of violence that the state is subjecting you to on a regular fucking basis, okay? Structural forms of violence like poverty, okay? Paywalling insulin is a violent behavior, is a violent activity. Some of the most vile, evil villains would only come up with a thing like that, okay? Saying you can't pay for your fucking medical treatment. If you don't have money, sorry, you're gonna fucking die. That's violence. It's structural, though. So it's different. You're conditioned into not seeing that. You're not thinking about it in the same way that you would as like someone punching another person.
Ostracized, obviously. But when it comes to the right, then the idea is that if a person who we don't even know what his views are on any of this stuff yet, even if it turns out this person has a manifesto that is wildly, horrifically anti-gay, for example, does that mean that everybody who believes that same-sex marriage is wrong?
Yes. Yes. They're morally culpable. Yes. You are normalizing it. Yes. You more than like the random fucking dumbass grandma in Kentucky, though, obviously. I'm not saying that like the random dumbass grandma in Kentucky is responsible for this kind of anti-LGBT violence, but you are, because you use your platform to legitimize that kind of attitude. You literally try to arm people with talking points so they can be the most annoying shitheads in every fucking group.
Societally approved same-sex marriage is wrong. Does that mean everybody is now guilty for a person who goes and shoots up
I am very open about my biases, okay? I am very open about wanting to change your mind. I am very open about how I want to design a society, what kind of society I want to live in, okay? That's the difference between me and Ben, because I'm not cowardly. I don't think that I have to hide it, because I know that I'm correct. Ben, on the other hand, will routinely fucking complain about censorship, when in fact, what he's actually upset about is the reality that history has a slant towards progress, okay? It might take a while, but ultimately people come to terms with understanding one another and being more empathetic to one another, because that's how society is run. It's not individualistic. It's not as hyper-individualistic as these capitalist dickheads claim it is, okay? Collectivism is also one of the building blocks of society, if not the most fundamentally important building block of society. And if you want to collectively engage with one another, if you want collectivism to happen, then yes, there's going to need to be a level of empathy and understanding, okay? And that's why when we get together and fucking live in cities and shit, and we have this like yearning for understanding one another, people end up becoming more tolerant towards those who look different than them, those who sound different than them, those who want to do different shit than them, okay? Ben hates that. When Ben complains about censorship, he's actually complaining not about censorship, but he's complaining about motherfuckers saying like, dude, you're wrong. Like, he hates that he can't openly state that like the society that he would design for a better future is one that is just, Judeo-Christian, he would say, that is overwhelmingly white and no gay people. I don't have those fears. When I talk about how I want to see a future, I don't have the fears that Ben has. I can openly and earnestly make an argument for why things would be better if my perspective and the things that I believe in, that I truly believe other humans are also conditioned into believing as well, were to happen, were to take place. We would be better off. Ben can't openly state that, though, because his future dystopia, which we kind of already live in, is brutal, oppressive, awful for those who do not subscribe to the norm.
This sort of game is really ugly. It's really hideous. And again, it is only played by one side of the political aisle. I've been saying for my entire career, as far as I'm aware, when you have an act of violence and the person who commits that act of violence is a whack job who is misinterpreting the words.
Dog, every person that does acts of violence like this are whack jobs. Like, it doesn't matter. That doesn't...
A movement or a politician, that person is not reflective of the movement or politician. When a Black Lives Matter fellow traveler murders Dallas police officers in 2015, that is not the fault of Barack Obama. It's actually not even the fault of Black Lives Matter. When a Bernie Sanders supporter shoots up a congressional baseball game, that's not the fault of Bernie Sanders. And yet the entire left-wing media infrastructure and Democratic Party will immediately shift into, if you don't support every element of our radical social agenda, then you are responsible for murder. It's an ugly, stupid game that is directed specifically at silencing people who disagree with you.
I love that. Yeah, pre-watched, by the way. I know. He had to come up with like the 2 times where you could like point to the left. You know what I mean? That's awesome. Meanwhile, El Paso happened under Trump. Fucking the Buffalo grocery store was shot up not that long ago. There are so many examples of like right-wing terror.
So again, if you say the boys are boys and girls are girls, this means that you are complicit in a person who had a history of threatening his own mother with a bomb, shooting a bunch of gay people at a nightclub in Colorado Springs. This is the take from AOC. And then she broadened this out. She said, after Trump elevated anti-immigrant and anti-Latino rhetoric, we had the deadliest anti-Latino shooting in modern history.
That's true. That literally happened. Yeah, El Paso.
After anti-Asian hate with COVID, Atlanta, Tree of Life, Emmanuel AME, Buffalo. And now after an LGBT plus campaign, anti-LGBT plus campaign, Colorado Springs. Connect the dots, GOP. Well, the problem is that those dots don't connect. I mean, first of all, the quote-unquote anti-Asian hate attack in Atlanta.
Why did he pass El Paso? Wait, Ben, why did you wait? Why did Ben just jump over? Why did he skip over the biggest anti-Latino crime, hate crime committed on US soil in recent years? Why didn't he fucking mention that? Maybe he will.
Atlanta was directed against sex workers. Right? That's what it was.
That makes it okay. You're right, because sex workers actually are super promoted and super protected. So that's
and when she suggests that Emmanuel AME is the fault of Donald Trump, which is what she's suggesting there. Emmanuel AME happened. I checked the date. The day after Donald Trump announced for the presidency. He was not there's no relationship there. When it comes to the Buffalo.
What? Bro, she didn't just say Donald Trump. She said GOP. Is Donald Trump responsible for the singular? Is Donald Trump responsible for racism in the Republican Party? Is that what you're saying? What the fuck?
The Buffalo shooter in his manifesto.
Why is Ben not bringing up El Paso? Why did he skip over El Paso?
Actively dissociates from Trump. Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting was not connected with quote unquote right-wing rhetoric. It was connected with a person who appeared to be a radical Muslim.
Yeah, no, it was. That is right-wing. Being a fundamentalist Muslim is right-wing, Ben. That is literally what that is. What the fuck? Yo, Ben literally is like, Ben's like radical Islam, famously left-wing. You know, fundamentalist Muslims are famously left-wing.